Hello everyone. In this video we look at the idea of Coulomb's law. Now Coulomb's law talks about the magnitude of force between two point charges. So we already discussed about the idea of point charge. Point charge is supposed to be the charge located at a single point. So while Coulomb's law experiments obviously cannot have point charges, since point charges are merely a theoretical idea. The experimental studies of Coulomb's law were based on small spherical charged objects, and here we'll talk about the distance between the two charges, and in the experimental studies the distance between the two charges is considered as the distance between the centers of these small spheres. So let us look at what is this Coulomb's law. So as per the Coulomb's law, if we have 2 point charges, then if they are like charges, they will repel each other, and if they are unlike charges, they will attract each other. The force of attraction or repulsion, the force magnitude, will be directly proportional to the product of magnitudes of the two charges. So let us say one charge is Q1, other charge is Q2, then the force magnitude modulus of F bar proportional to mod Q1 into mod Q2. So why we are taking modulus is charge can be positive, charge can be negative. We are talking about the force magnitude. So remember, whenever we say a vector, magnitude of a vector will be always non-negative. It can be 0 for a zero vector or null vector, but it will always be non-negative, because for a vector the magnitude represents length of the line segment, so it cannot be negative. It can be 0 for a null vector. So the force magnitude is proportional to the product of the magnitudes of the charges, and is inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. So this is where the three fundamental forces have similarities. If you look at the gravitational force between two masses, what we will see is that the gravitational force is proportional to the product of the masses and is inversely proportional to square of the distance between the two masses. So since these forces, even when we go to the magnetic force, there also we will see that it will be inverse square relation in terms of the distance. That is the reason why all these forces are also called as inverse square law forces. That is a common feature between these three fundamental forces. So Coulomb's law observation is that the force magnitude is proportional to the product of magnitudes of the charges and is inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. So if we aggregate them together, what we will be having is mod F will be proportional to mod Q1 into mod Q2 by R square. So this proportional relation, we can convert this into an equation by using a constant. So remember, in case of the gravitation, we will use a constant. The constant will be capital G, and the capital G will be called as universal gravitational constant. And we even know the value of that. The value of that will be 6.67 into 10 power minus 11 Newton meter square divided by kg square. So we will talk about the use of the word universal after we talk about the electrostatic force formula. So the electrostatic force between two charges will be equal to a constant K. Since this law is proposed by Coulomb, this constant will be calling it as Coulomb's law, mod K into mod Q1 mod Q2 by R square. This K is what we will be calling as Coulomb's constant. And here one thing we must notice, that we are not calling it as a universal Coulomb's constant. We are calling it merely as a Coulomb's constant. So the reason why we have some constants as universal constant is because the universal constants, they don't depend upon the other factors. They will be always a constant, like the gravitational force between two masses, whether we are measuring in air or in water, I mean whatever is the medium between the two masses, the capital G value does not depend upon it. Whereas we will see after some time that this K, Coulomb's constant, will be depending upon the properties of the medium, means in which medium these two charges are kept. So the medium is going to determine the value of K. Hence the Coulomb's constant will not be a universal constant. So this is the Coulomb's law expression for the electrostatic force between 2 point charges. So as we are saying that this expression is for finding the force between 2 point charges. Only for the point charges we can talk about distance between the two charges. If you have an extended body, like we have an extended body, between these two bodies we cannot talk about distance. So that is the idea of Coulomb's law. And one more thing is that the Coulomb's law expression and the Newton's law of gravitation expression, they have similarity. The Newton's gravitation between two masses is proportional to product of the masses. Here it is proportional to product of the magnitudes of the charges. And in terms of distance relation, both are inversely related to the square of the distance. But the gravitational force does not depend upon the medium between the two masses, and we will see that the electrostatic force will be depending upon the medium between the two masses. Sometimes we will see that people also will be calling the electrostatic force as Coulomb's force. Okay, so this is about the idea of Coulomb's force or electrostatic force between 2 point charges. Now we have talked about the Coulomb's constant K. So Coulomb's constant comes in the formula of the Coulomb's expression. Mod F will be equal to K into mod Q1 into mod Q2 by R square. So we can look at what will be the unit and what will be the dimensional formula for the constant K. If you look at the dimensional formula, how do we get the dimensional formula? Using the dimensional analysis. So in dimensional analysis, what we will look at is, if you have an equation, we have LHS and we have RHS. The LHS dimension must be equal to RHS dimension. So LHS we have force. Force dimensional formula is ml t power minus 2 should be equal to the dimensional formula for K, which is what we are trying to find. And we have charge into charge. Remember, already we discussed about it. Charge dimensional formula will be the dimensional formula of current into time. So we have I into T, another I into T, divided by the R will be distance between the two charges. So it is the length, so L square. So from here what we have is bringing everything to the LHS, m L t power minus 2 into L square divided by I square T square will be the dimensional formula for K. So which will be nothing but m L cube t power minus 4, because t power minus 2 is there in the numerator, another t square in the denominator, so it will be t power minus 2 I power minus 2. So this will be the dimensional formula for the Coulomb's constant K. And the unit of Coulomb's constant, if you look at this expression, so we have LHS Newton is equal to the unit of K into charge will be Coulomb square divided by meter square. So Newton meter square divided by Coulomb square. This will be the SI unit of Coulomb's constant K. And we will see that the Coulomb's constant K will be depending upon the properties of the medium. So if you look at the properties of the medium, generally when we talk about the physical properties of the medium, we will be using density as an important property. If you talk about the optical properties of the medium, we will use the refractive index. We all know what is refractive index. Refractive index talks about how fast light can travel through a medium. So refractive index is defined as speed of light in vacuum divided by speed of light in the medium. So if you have a medium with high refractive index, means in that medium the speed of light will be lesser. So refractive index is an indication of the optical properties of the medium. Similarly, in the electricity and magnetism chapter, we will talk about the electrical properties and magnetic properties. So magnetic properties we will talk about it when we go to magnetism. So here in electrical properties we will use a property called as permittivity. So permittivity is an important property of the medium, which we indicate this with a symbol epsilon. And for the magnetic properties, we will be using a term called as permeability. So this is indicated by the symbol mu. So we'll discuss more about what is permittivity and what is permeability in the further parts of this chapter as well as the other chapters. So we'll learn about permittivity in this chapter, and permeability we'll be learning about it in the magnetism chapters. But permittivity, it is an indication of how a medium is allowing electric field to propagate through it. So it is an indication of how a medium is allowing electric field to propagate through it. And the Coulomb's constant of the particular medium will be equal to 1 by 4 by epsilon. So for any medium, the Coulomb's constant value will be equal to 1 by 4 by epsilon. Since epsilon will be depending upon the medium, it is a property of the medium, the Coulomb's constant also will be depending upon the medium. And for vacuum, the permittivity is represented by epsilon naught, whose value will be 8.85 into 10 power minus 12 Coulomb square divided by Newton meter square. This is the permittivity value for vacuum or free space or even air. So all of them will have approximately the permittivity value 8.85 into 10 power minus 12, which we will indicate with the symbol epsilon naught. So the corresponding value of K will be nearly 9 into 10 power 9. So the value of K for the air or vacuum or free space will be 9 into 10 power 9. Unit will be Newton meter square divided by Coulomb square. And if we go to some other medium, obviously the value of K will be changing. So if you look at the values of both epsilon naught as well as K for the vacuum or free space or air, these are not simple numbers that we can just like that remember. I mean, we can remember for the vacuum or free space, but the same values we cannot remember for each and every medium. Like say for example, for some other medium the value of epsilon is coming as some 9.63 into 10 power minus 13. So some other medium it will come as some 4.98 into 10 power minus 14. So we will not be able to remember these values for each and every medium. So what we would do is we would try to relate the permittivity of every medium to the permittivity of vacuum or free space by using a ratio concept, just like the way we will talk about in physical quantities. We will talk about relative density. So relative density is nothing but if we have density of any material divided by density of the reference material, that is what we call as the relative density. Same way here we will use a term called as relative permittivity. So relative permittivity, which we will indicate with the symbol epsilon r, is nothing but permittivity of the medium by permittivity of the vacuum or free space. So if we remember, and these relative permittivity values will be like simple numbers to remember, like for water this value will be approximately 80, for something like a mica the value will be 6. So we'll have rounded off numbers for the relative permittivity. So if you know the relative permittivity, we can find the permittivity of the medium straight away by using the relation. So epsilon will be equal to epsilon naught into epsilon r. So this is how we can find the permittivity of the particular medium. So this relative permittivity concept is used to easily recall the permittivity values of different medium. So the Coulomb's constant K will be depending upon the properties of the medium. That property is electrical property. We are calling it as permittivity. And permittivity indicates the ability of a medium to allow electric field to propagate through it. We'll learn more about this in further section of the chapter. And just to give you an idea here, we will also be learning in this electricity magnetism chapters the idea of permeability. Permeability is a magnetic property, and the value of K for vacuum or free space or air will be 9 into 10 power 9 SI system. And to remember the permittivity values of different medium, we will use the relative permittivity concept. Relative permittivity will be permittivity of that medium by permittivity of vacuum or free space. So this is about the dependency of Coulomb's constant on the properties of the medium. Now we'll go through some illustration problems. So these problems are based upon the Coulomb's law and applications of Coulomb's law. two charges 2 mc. So this m will be milli. So milli means 10 power minus 3. Two charges 2 millicoulomb, and 4 mu. Mu will be micro, 10 power minus 6. Two charges 2 millicoulomb and 4 microcoulomb are separated, are at a separation of 2 centimeter in air. So the medium is given as air to us. What is the nature of force between them? So if you look at it, this is positive charge, this is also positive charge. So the two charges are like charges. So the two charges will be repelling each other. And its magnitude. So we need to find the magnitude. So we have the two charges Q1 and Q2. The distance between them is given as 2 centimeter. In terms of SI unit, it will be 2 into 10 power minus 2 meter. The charges are given. One charge is the 2 millicoulomb, means 2 into 10 power minus 3. The other charge is 4 microcoulomb, means 4 into 10 power minus 6. These are in the medium air. So the value of K is 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter square divided by Coulomb square. So the Coulomb's law states that the force magnitude between two charges is K into mod Q1 into mod Q2 by R square. Here both the charges are anyway positive, so modulus also is going to give us a positive value. So 9 into 10 power 9, everything is in the SI system. So finally the force will be coming in Newton. Into Q1 value is 2 into 10 power minus 3, Q2 value is 4 into 10 power minus 6, divided by distance is R value is 2 into 10 power minus 2 the whole square, because we have R square. So we can see 10 power minus 3, 10 power minus 6, that will be cancelled. So what we have is 9 into 2 4s are 8, divided by denominator we have 4 into 10 power minus 4. So we have 18 into 10 power 4 Newton. So this is the force between the two charges. And one thing we've even talked about it in the first video of the chapter, that the strength of the electrostatic force is much more than the gravitational force. And one of the reason for this is the constants in the force expression. Like if you look at the value of K in vacuum or free space, it is 9 into 10 power 9 SI unit. The value of capital G is 6.67 into 10 power minus 11. So we can look at the order of the constants. So this is 10 power 9 and this is 10 power minus 11. So the order of the constant for the electrostatic force is much more than the order of the constant for the Coulomb's the gravitational force. That is the reason why we will see that the electrostatic force will be much stronger force than the gravitational force. Now moving on to the next question. This is a theoretical question. Is there any minimum value of force possible between any two charges at a separation of 1 centimeter in air? So here we are not supposed to get any answer, we just need to comment, is there any minimum value for force? So if, say for example, I have two charges Q1 and Q2, I mean we don't know what are the charge values, but let us say there are two charges which are at a separation of 1 centimeter, which will be 10 power minus 2 meter. They are in the air, so K value will be 9 into 10 power 9. This is also SI unit. Now we need to look at the force between the two charges. So force value will be 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter square by Coulomb square into mod Q1 into mod Q2 by R square. So it will be 10 power minus 2 meter the whole square. Now we need to comment, is there any minimum value of force possible? So if you look at the force formula, the charge values are appearing in the numerator, and we can see that if Q1 is lesser, force will be lesser. If Q2 is lesser, force will be again less. So the minimum possible force will come when Q1, or rather mod Q1 is minimum and mod Q2 is also minimum. Here, unlike mass, charge is quantized. So we have learnt about it in properties of the charges, that the minimum possible value of charge is basic charge. We cannot have a charge less than that. Similarly, if you look at Q2, the minimum value for Q2 also will be E. So which means that we will have the minimum possible value of force between any two possible charges, where each of the charge, because the minimum possible value for the charges is going to be E and E. So E value is basic charge, which is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. So yes, correct. We will have a minimum value for the force that is possible between two charges at a fixed separation. So here we are taking the fixed separation to be 1 centimeter. And this is happening because of the principle or property of the charge, which is quantization of the charge. This is another formula based question, straight based upon the Coulomb's law expression. So these kind of questions we do get in medical examinations like NEET. I mean, so they straight formula based questions. Force between two charges at a separation is F. So they are not even giving us what are the charges, and they are not even telling what is the separation. They are saying force between two charges at a separation is F. If the distance between them is doubled and one of the charge is tripled, if the distance between them is doubled and one of the charge is tripled, then what is the new force value? So obviously we have to tell. So here there is no other information given to us except the force in the first case. So we have to tell the final answer in terms of F. So since they have not given anything, we have to assume some values. So let us say that initially the charges be Q1 and Q2. And since they have not talked about the charges, let us assume that both of them are positive. And let us say the distance between them is R. So what we have is the initial force F will be equal to K into, since both are positive, mod Q1 will be Q1, mod Q2 will be Q2 divided by R square. So let us call it as equation 1. In the second case, what is happening is one of the charge is tripled, means one charge is becoming 3Q1, other charge is as it is Q2. Distance between them is doubled, means distance is now becoming 2R. So in the second case, the force, let us call it as F dash. F dash will be equal to K into, here the first charge is 3Q1, second charge is Q2 divided by 2R the whole square. So what we see is K into, the 3 will be there, 3 into Q1 Q2 by denominator we have 4R square. So which is nothing but 3 by 4 K Q1 Q2 by R square. K Q1 Q2 by R square is F. So we can have it as 3 by 4 F. So what we see is in the second scenario, after we doubled the distance between them and we tripled one of the charges, the new force between them is going to be F dash is equal to 3 by 4 F. So this is basically the scenario based questions, or case based question is what we call it. This is a very standard question. Even this has come in a couple of entrance examinations. A charge Q is divided into two parts. So we have a charge Q and we are dividing the charge into two parts. In what ratio the charges must be divided such that the force of repulsion between them is maximum for a given separation? So the thing is, we want to break the charge into two parts. We can break it in whatever way we want. We can break it like, Q by 3, 2Q by 3, or Q by 2, Q by 2, Q by 4, 3Q by 4, Q by 5, 4Q by 5. We can break the charge in whatever combination we want. Accordingly, the ratio of the two charges is going to be changing. The condition that we are looking at is how we should break them such that the force of repulsion between them is maximum for a given separation. So if we are keeping these two parts at a fixed separation, let us say R is separation, which is going to be fixed. This we are not changing. So however we break the charges, we are going to be keeping them at the fixed separation. And we need to see how we need to break the charge Q so that the force of repulsion between them is going to be maximum. So here, whenever we are attempting questions like this, if we have a quantity, like say for example, we have a length L. We want to divide the length into two parts. Usually we will introduce a variable, and typically we have to find the value of the variable. So the method of dividing the quantity into two parts by introducing a variable, which will be of use in a lot of such problems, is we can take the two parts of the length as L by 2 plus x and L by 2 minus x. So essentially what we are saying is half plus something and half minus that, because if we add both of them, L by 2 plus x and L by 2 minus x, we add both of them, we are going to get back L. So this is how we can break a quantity in terms of introducing a variable. Similarly, here we are breaking a charge q into two parts. Let us say one part is q by 2 plus x, other part will be q by 2 minus x. This is a way of dividing the charge into two parts by using a variable. Here x is the variable, and we need to find, our task is to find what is the value of x. Our task is to find what is the value of x. So here, since the two charges are q by 2 plus x and q by 2 minus x, the separation between them is fixed. That also they didn't give. So let us assume that r is that fixed separation. The thing is, r must be fixed value. It should not change. As per the Coulomb's law, the force magnitude between the two parts is k into, if we take q to be positive, then modulus will be as it is. So we'll have q by 2 plus x and q by 2 minus x divided by r square. So if you just rearrange it, cube k by r square, if you see this, it is like, you know, a plus b into a minus b. A plus b into a minus b will be a square minus b square. So q square by 4 minus x square. Now here we are looking for this term to become maximum. Here k is a constant, r is fixed, because they are saying for a given separation. Q square by 4 is also fixed, because that is not going to change. It is already given to us, q value is given to us. The only thing that can change is this x square. If you look at this expression, what we are saying is k by r square into q square by 4 minus x square, means we are subtracting x square. And whatever be the value of x, if we have x as, say for example, minus 0.5, x square means it will become positive. So we are subtracting some value. So definitely the force is going to be lesser. If you take x is positive, let's say x is 0.1. I mean, we don't know what is the value, but I'm just saying some number. So if I say x is equal to 0.1, then 0.1 square, again we are subtracting it. If you want to have the force to be maximum, that is only possible, if you want this value to be maximum, that is only possible when we have x is equal to 0, because that is when we will subtract nothing. So when we subtract nothing, that is when the mod f will be maximum. So if you want to have maximum value for the force, x must be 0, and if x is 0, that is the condition we are getting. The two charge values are going to be q by 2 comma q by 2. So we have to divide the charge q into exactly two equal halves. So the ratio of the two charges is going to be 1:1, and that is when we are going to be having the maximum force of repulsion between the two charges. So this is a very standard question. Next, this is a question that is based on the basic property of charge, which is charge addition and charge cancellation. So we have talked about it in the properties of the charges. If you have two charges, like say for example we have charge of 1 coulomb and charge of 2 coulomb, we bring them together, the total charge is going to be 1 plus 2, 3 coulombs. If you have a charge of 5 coulomb and charge of minus 2 coulomb, when we bring them together, the total charge is going to be 5 minus 2, it is going to be 3 coulombs. So this property is basically what we call as additivity of the charge. So charge will add if it is of same nature, and it will cancel if it is of opposite nature. Let's look at this question. Two identical objects having charges 10 and minus 2. So one of them is positive, other is negative. So here the thing that we are talking about is two identical objects, means in terms of the shape and size these objects must be identical. So the two identical objects having charges 10 and minus 2 have a force magnitude F between them. So initially they are having a force of magnitude F, and this F value will obviously depend upon what is the medium and what is the distance between the two charges. If they both are made to contact once and again brought back to original place, if these two objects are made to just contact once and again brought back to the original place, what will be the new force between them? So we need to find what is the new force between them. And also we need to comment is the nature of force going to change? So first let us see what is going to happen. So we have two identical objects. Let us see the two identical objects. Initially they are at some separation. We don't even know the value. Let us say r is the separation between them. And let us say the medium in which they are present, the Coulomb's constant value is k. Now initially the force magnitude is F, means F value will be equal to k into modulus of 10 into modulus of minus 2 divided by r square, which is k by r square into 10 into modulus of minus 2 will be 2. So 10 into 2 will be 20. And here we need to remember that these two are unlike charges, so they will be attracting each other. Now what happens when we bring them together and touch? So if we bring them together and touch, one is 10 coulomb, other is minus 2 coulomb. When we touch them, the total charge, because of the property of the charge, additivity of the charge, 10 minus 2 is now going to become 8 coulombs. Now if we are separating them, the charge is going to be uniformly distributed because these two are identical objects. If it is uniformly distributed means now each of the objects are going to have 4 coulombs and 4 coulombs. Because they are identical objects, they are going to be distributing the charge equally. So in the second case, let us say the force is F dash. F dash value will be equal to k into mod 4 by r square, which is equal to k by r square into 16. Now we can see that the force in this case, because it is the force between two same type of charges, the force is going to be repulsive in nature. So the nature of force is going to be changing. Initially it is attractive, now it is repulsive. And let us look at, so we have to tell the value of F dash in terms of F. So from the first expression, we have k by r square is F by 20. So k, if you take the 20 to the other side, it will go to the denominator. So what we have is F dash will be equal to k by r square, we can write as F by 20 into 16, means 4 4s are 4 5s, 4F by 5. So F dash value will be 4F by 5, and the nature is changing. Initially it is attractive, now it is repulsive. So this problem we are using the basic property of the charges, which is charge addition and charge cancellation. Now for numericals in competitive examinations, this is a very favorite area, the cumulative force. Cumulative force is very simple, like the way we normally do in mechanics problems. If we have a charge and say for example this charge is surrounded by other charges, I mean we may have whatever number we want. If you look at Q and Q1, if these two are unlike charges, then Q will be attracted. If Q and Q2 are like charges, so let us call it as F1. If Q and Q2 are like charges, it will be repelled, let us say F2. If Q and Q3 are unlike charges, attractive. Let's say these are also unlike charges, attractive. See, these are also unlike charges, attractive. So what we are essentially seeing is, on this charge Q, there will be 5 forces acting at the same time because of the surrounding charges, and the net force will be given by the vector sum of forces acting on the charge Q. So when we are adding the forces, we have to keep in mind that we cannot just do, so if say for example F1 value is 4 Newton, F2 is 3 Newton, F3 is 1 Newton, F4 is 6 Newton, F5 is 5 Newton, like that. So we cannot simply say that the total force is 4 plus 3 plus 1 plus 6 plus 5, because we have to be considering the directions. So when we are adding forces, we have to keep in mind that we are adding vectors. So the net force or cumulative force is given by the vector sum of forces acting on the particular charge. So this idea is what we call as the idea of the cumulative force. Now in the next part video, we will discuss about the varieties of problems that we can have on the application of the cumulative force. This is a very important area for the competitive examinations. Like if you look at more often the problems from Coulomb's law will be coming from this section. Next, this is academically important result which we will be using in the derivation of the next idea, which is the electric field. But let's look at it. Coulomb's law in the vector form. Now when we talked about the Coulomb's law, we have talked about the magnitude of force between the two charges. But force is a vector, which means it will have direction. Is it possible to give the direction of the electrostatic force? So let us take the situation. If we have charge Q1, another charge Q2, and depending upon the nature of the two charges, if they are like charges means Q2 will be repelled. If they are unlike charges means Q2 will be attracted. If you want to give the force acting on Q2 because of Q1 as a vector, we must be able to give the direction also. And here the only vector that we can think about is position vector of charge 2 location with respect to charge 1 location. So if we draw a vector from the position of Q1 to position of Q2, we can call it as r bar 2 comma 1. This is nothing but position vector of Q2 with respect to Q1. A unit vector in the direction will be given by r cap 2 comma 1, which will be the vector divided by its magnitude. R cap will be indicating the position, the unit vector in the direction. So if at all we are expressing the force acting on Q2 in a vector form, this must be expressed either in terms of r cap or in terms of r bar. So the Coulomb's law in the vector form, the force acting on the second charge because of first charge will be given by K into Q1 Q2 divided by r square. So here I am using r just to indicate the magnitude. So r will be indicating the magnitude of the distance between the two charges into r cap 2 comma 1. So this is the Coulomb's law in the vector form. Now if you look at it, so here one thing we need to be careful that there is no magnitude for the, or there is no modulus for the Q1 and Q2 here. So here it is just Q1 and just Q2. So the force acting on second charge because of first. If you look at this expression, if Q1 is say positive, Q2 is positive, they both are like charges, then in that case the Q2 must be repelled. So repelled means we can see that the direction must be in the same direction as this is the direction of r cap 2 comma 1. So we'll see that if Q1 and Q2 are like charges, whether it is positive or negative, then the overall force will be in the same direction as r cap 2 comma 1. If one of them is positive, other is negative, then we'll see that we'll have the final expression like this: f2 comma 1 will be minus some constant into r cap 2 comma, which means it is telling us that the force acting on Q2 will be in opposite direction to r cap 2 comma 1, which is true because if Q1 and Q2 are unlike charges, then Q2 will be attracted. Means the force acting on Q2 must be in because here we can see the right side is like r cap 2 comma 1 direction. The force acting on Q2 in this case will be left side. So the expression that we are having over here will be the Coulomb's law expression in the vector form. So it will tell the force acting on the second charge because of first charge, and the direction is given by using the position vector. So we can also write in another form, f2 comma 1 can be also written as k q1 q2 by rq into r bar 2 comma 1. So because we can have r cap written as r bar by r, so denominator totally it will become rq. So this is alternative form. So either this or this we can use for representing Coulomb's law in the vector form. So we will use this in the derivation of the electric field. Now we said that Coulomb's law is for the point masses, but how do we find the force between one point mass and one extended charge? So here we can talk about not point mass rather but point charge. If we have force between one point charge and another extended charge, how do we find the force between them? So one charge is a point charge, other is an extended charged object. This is the extended charge. So how do we find the force between them? So how we will find the force between them is by using the method of integration. So we'll solve some problems on this in later videos. Here we'll just try to get the idea of it. So how we will go about finding the force between these two objects is, we will take a small part of this extended body and find the force because of Q on it, and then we have to consider another part, another small part, another small part. We have to find all these forces acting on each and every small part of the body and add these forces by the idea of integration, because when we are dividing the object into smaller parts, we will divide them into what we call as infinitesimally small parts using differential element. So we have to find the force acting on each and every small part and then add up all these forces so that we will get the net force acting on the extended body. So this is the method in which we will be able to find the force between one point charge and one extended charge. And this we will see some problems, then we will be able to understand how we will use the integration approach. The other case will be if we have two extended charges. So we have one charge which is extended, another charge is also extended. So this is Q1, this is Q2. So how do we find the force between them? So in this case it is going to be a little bit even more complicated. What we do is we have to take a very small part of this body, very small differential element. So generally these kind of problems, if at all we are getting, we'll get in the JEE advanced level. So we'll take a very small part of this body and find force acting on each and every small element of the other body by using the integration approach. So because of one small differential element, we will find what is the force acting on each and every small element of the body. By adding all these with integration approach, we will get what is the net force acting on this entire body because of one single element of the other body. And then we have to take another element. So this we have to do the second level of integration. So this problem will involve integration applied 2 times. So this is how we can find the force acting between two extended charges. So this problem will be a little bit more complicated than the force between one point charge and one extended body. So these two are the extensions to Coulomb's law, because Coulomb's law only talks about force between 2 point charges. So we will work out couple of problems in both these models in the next part of the video, because next part we'll have problems related to the Coulomb's law and applications of the Coulomb's law. So this is about the broad idea of what is Coulomb's law. In the next part we will look at the problems related to the Coulomb's law and its applications.